Hey there, I'm Aaron Ross, author of the book Predictable Revenue and co-author of the book From Impossible to Inevitable with Jason Lemkin of SaaStr. And I'm here today, I'm going to talk to you about, for you product people who love product, I assume, if you're here, how basically 3 tips on how to make more money with your product. Now, my background, if you haven't heard me, I created the outbound sales system at salesforce.com. And I left Salesforce actually more years ago than I care to count, but enough years ago where I've worked with a lot of companies since then, it's maybe over 10 years, in helping them create predictable revenue. How do you actually make money with a product? How do you grow that? And so I've seen all the mistakes people make, and I know the ones you're probably making. So let's start. Most often, again, most of you are probably kind of product-based. You have a product, you love a product. That's why we're here, right? Product-led sales, product-led growth. And yet here are the mistakes people make. Again, and then there's nothing new here. It's the same mistakes people always make. It's you are so in love with your product, as you should be, that you don't really understand, like you know it too well. And you've forgotten what it's like to be new to the product. So of course, when you're designing your product and creating your product and getting your first sales, you should be talking to the people that you know, your network, whether you have investors or not, or friends, family, LinkedIn. And those people are going to be excited by it because you're excited. And so great, get those first few sales. But if you're either struggling to get those first sales or struggling to, like you've gotten your first sales, you're struggling to get more, the most common reason people struggle is because you haven't yet nailed the niche. Or in Canada, they'd say nailed the niche, or Europe. And what does that mean? It means that you may have a great product, but you haven't figured out who needs it enough to buy it and their language. Like, what do they care about? This is the old advertising, I think metaphor is people don't buy the drill, they buy the hole. And again, you create a product, you're excited about the drill, it's an amazing drill. And there's this process to learn about how, what do people really want? They want the hole, but how do you find the people who need the hole and are willing to pay for it? So that's the first step here. It's about, I think the simplest way to describe it is learning which customers need this, they need your product, and which ones where it's a nice to have. So as you talk to your friends and family in relationships, they're going to give you kind of a lot of slack. They're going to listen to you. They're going to be, I wouldn't say artificially positive. That's not the right term. Not being fake. You're getting an unfair advantage with them. They're going to be more positive than people who don't know you. So this process of talking to them, but then make sure you're talking to people who don't know you, where there's not some prior relationship, to really get more of a neutral opinion on what the product looks like and how you talk about it, what resonates with them. That's your real test. It's not the people who know you, it's the people who don't know you. That's your real test on can the product and the way you describe the product stand on its own in order to grow and to sell. So the first place to start is focusing on when people are interested, who needs it enough to buy, where it's a nice to have. And here's the way you can understand when it's a nice to have. Anyone who you think should buy it, because again, let's ignore all the people where you're just getting feedback. You're talking to someone who you think should buy it. They do the demo and like, hey, that's really cool. And then you never hear from them again. That's a need to have situation, right? And to be clear, your product is not a need to have or a nice to have. It's to which customer is it need to have? To which customer is it a nice to have? Okay, so nice to have, they say great demo, never hear from them again. Need to have, so they have to need it, and why they have to need it to buy is because if they don't need it, it's just gonna fall off the priority list at some point through the multiple steps they typically go through in order to review, buy, implement. And people are busy, right? And in the B2C world, people will do impulse buys, right? People will spend a lot more money on Porsches than broccoli. You don't need a Porsche. You do need broccoli. But in the B2B world, those impulse purchases that one person's like, hey, cool, I want to get it, they don't happen because there's more than one step. There's usually more than one person. And so some of that emotion, that impulsivity is squeezed out. So if the product doesn't justify itself, it's not going to get bought because other things will come up. All right, so that's the first step, is going through this, and you might need to talk to 10, 5, 10, 20, 50, 100 prospects. You might have to sell 10 or 20, 50 paying customers to start to really get clear on when you're a need to have versus a nice to have. But that's step one, because you really want to focus on who needs it. So this is that idea of nailing a niche. It's being much more targeted with who you're going after, because you're not going to win by being a small fish in a big pond. You win by being a big fish in a small pond. And it's a lot easier to make the pond smaller than the fish bigger. In other words, it's a lot easier to be much more targeted in the kinds of companies you're going after and how you speak to them than it is to change your product or business model. So that's step one. Step two is, I got my notes here, you got to learn the customer's language. What does that mean? Okay, you think like you might be an expert in your space. Again, you know your product and what you're doing so well that it's easy for you to forget what it's like. It's that curse of knowledge. I don't remember who coined that term, but there's the curse of knowledge where you can't unremember what you know. You can't bring the beginner's mind to the conversation when you're creating landing pages or having a sales conversation. So the way that you go back and learn how to speak that customer's language, whether it's the beginning process in lead generation, whether it's the middle process of sales proposals or signing or renewing, ideally is to spend more time with them. So that would include interviewing, especially, well, every sales call you have is a chance to learn and a chance to interview people. So, but beyond the people that know you, which they're not really that helpful past the beginning stages, because the people who know you, most of them are not going to give you honest, like truly honest feedback. They're not going to say, wow, that's incredibly confusing. They'll say things like, wow, that was great, but I'm not sure what you could do. They're going to censor themselves, most of them. There'll be rare exceptions of people who give you the honest truth. But what can you do? You have to go out and go find some buyers and interview them. And it can be a pain in the ass, yes, but it's that important. So what Jason Lemkin says is if you're creating a new product at a new startup, there's this 20 interview rule, right? Over the course, and you're getting your pitch and your product, and this is not in 1 month. It's like over the course of getting the product to market. If you already have a product and you're just refining things, maybe it's 3 interviews. You can get a lot, but you have to do interviews. Going out and actually meeting people again who are not part of your network, ideally, where there's not that relationship bias that will skew their responses. Even if you can do 3 interviews with people who call them cold interviews, people who don't know you well, but it could be buyers. All right, and the beauty is, now interviewing takes a little practice to have a good interview. It's easy to have an interview that's not worthwhile. So there is a learning process if you haven't done them before. All I can say is just like a guitar. If you've never played guitar and you pick it up the first time, you're probably not going to be very good. Maybe okay. So if interviewing is awkward at first, don't quit just because the first couple didn't go well. Use that, realize, hey, it's a skill that can be learned. And the treasure here through the interview process, what you learn, what you get, is those insights into the buyers, how they think, and the language they use, the terms they use. So here's what you're looking for. What do they care about? What resonates with them? What is that internal lingo or internal language that they think about, they speak about, they do? There's a company called Kemberton that we helped them build their outbound prospecting team. And in the early days, it's a financial service to hospitals. They help hospitals collect more patient money. And they would reach out to hospitals and might, whether via email or phone calls, talk to some of the hospital and say, hey, who handles your receivables or your accounts receivables? And they didn't get any responses because it's just a vague question. But the hospitals have multiple kinds of receivables. There's patients and there's vendors and but when they changed their terms to say, hey, who handles your patient cash? It was immediately obvious to that person they were talking to, like where should they go? Right? Because it was really clear and it was in that customer's language. So the interviews, they not only help you refine that idea of like when are you a need to have versus when are you a nice to have. Empathy with what are your buyers like, and especially what do they care about and what kinds of terms, jargon, or language they use. which again, you can use to create in your landing pages, sales emails, marketing materials, whatever you need to do. Okay. So that was the second tip. It really boils down to do more, or at least any cold interviews or interviews with people who don't know you. All right. Third tip is, again, I'm assuming most of you are probably new, maybe not, but at least you love product. And there's this kind of, it's not an illusion, but it's more of a fairy tale that, hey, if you just build the right product, you're going to get all these customers and leads and people coming to you, because there's just going to be this magnet of people and it's just going to be viral and spinning out of control. And it's mostly a myth because it's very rare, right? There's enough stories of when it happens, it's created this belief that if you create a product that's great enough, then it's this magic avalanche of business will come to you. No, it doesn't work that way. The way it works is you create a product and then you keep working your ass off to get people to pay attention to it and to get leads and get sales, and it takes a couple years. So the thing I would encourage you to embrace, the thing I would tell you have to embrace in order to be successful here, is to embrace the idea of selling. That when you are selling, and whether you call it selling versus marketing, I mean, marketing, persuasion, selling, the word sales and selling has a bad rap. I never thought I would be in the world of selling. I never thought I would be a sales author. But what I've learned over the time of I did civil engineering at Stanford and investment banking and product marketing and started my own company and worked at Salesforce, all these different areas, is that sales is a life skill. If you want to accomplish anything in life, whether you want to start a nonprofit, build a product, sell a product, recruit a team, you got to know sales. Some of the best salespeople in the world have been people like John F. Kennedy, Elon Musk, Mother Teresa, Winston Churchill. So if you have any kind of negative connotation around the word sales or selling, it's just, you don't have to. It's just kind of this baggage people have picked up over time. Yeah, don't manipulate people. Selling is not manipulating. Selling can be inspiring people to change what they do in order to do it better. So that's what it takes for you to embrace it, because you will need it. Every company that has investors ends up selling, right? Slack, let's take all the companies at last. Slack, Facebook, HubSpot, Google, I think in Marketo, like all the classic inbound companies, SurveyMonkey, they all have not only sales teams, but outbound. They also have outbound prospecting or outbound sales teams. So the earlier you can embrace it, the easier it will be. And even just as importantly, embrace the fact that you, as founder, or wherever you are, you need to be the one embracing it. The CEO, the founders need to be part of the sales process and understand the sales process for this first probably at least 10 or 20 sales until you get some kind of rhythm. And that's one of the worst mistakes you can make as a founder is I made this mistake, the first internet company, venture fund company I founded, right? Abdicated sales. I don't want to deal with it. Hired a VP of sales. Things weren't working. Company went bankrupt, right? $5 million lost. Why do you think I went to salesforce.com to do sales, right? The only sales job they had was the lowest level sales job. And I took it because I knew how important it was for me to learn how to sell if I was going to start another company. So I can't emphasize this enough, which is any resistance you have towards the idea of selling, right? Getting appointments, having conversations with people, hopefully live people. I mean, in terms of being in person or over the phone, not just over email. And then asking for contracts or commitments. You're not going to be good at the beginning, but you can get better. Pick any good, read 3 sales books and you'll pretty much have what it takes to at least have your basics down. So, but know that you will not be as successful as you could be or need to be unless you embrace the idea of selling. And selling can be important. It can be a process. First, it's a multi-step process. It's not cold calling. And it's something you can learn like a skill. And it can be great for customers because one of these, I think, these illusions that have been developed is customers are more educated than ever. They're just going to see it, it's great, and come in and buy it. Wrong. Customers are more confused than ever. And unless you know how to help inspire them to action and give them a direction how to improve that area of the business or that you're trying to help, like, they're looking to you for leadership. They're not going to just come in and buy your stuff because you put it out there. You can't just sit around on your butt watching Netflix while you collect money. It's not going to happen that way. You need to get out there and inspire them and push them and encourage them to do things better. Probably with your product sometimes, but maybe not all the time. Really, the best kind of selling is when they win and you win. Right? They get a better result with their business. You make some money or get some other kind of value for yourself and your business. All right. So those are my 3 tips. The first one, again, you're not going to be able to grow until you nail a niche, which really is defining first the areas that you're nice to have versus the ones where you're in need to have, and focusing on the needs to have. Then also interviewing prospects and customers who don't know you, right? They don't have that artificial relationship bias. Probably at least 3 of those interviews. There's 3 good ones, because might have some throwaway interviews. And the last tip was to embrace selling as a life skill, not just for you, but for the company. Right? It can be something, a positive change for you in order to help drive the company, help drive your customers to make decisions. Because you know what? If you're new to this, one thing you'll realize, a lot of customers are just indecisive. Maybe most of them, right? Because it's easy comfort is the enemy of growth. So it's just easy when people are busy to stick with what you do rather than biting the bullet to make the change that will make things better. So how can you help them get off their duffs, make that decision, and move forward and make those changes, right? A lot of that time it's going to be up to you to push them and inspire them to do that. Anyway, again, it's Aaron Ross. If especially that nail and niche for the Europeans and Canadians topics is where you are, the whole first chapter of the From Impossible to Inevitable book is about that, because it's step number 1. And you can get that chapter for free at fromimpossible.com. So thanks, everyone. Good luck.